Good afternoon, Koan. Tukutangangoai.
Dzanonokiro.
Zim Tech Community.
So yeah, welcome back on Thursday meetups. It's been a while since we've had a session, and I love the turnout. Normally we need to wait for people to join in, but as not everyone is excited, people just wanted to join in and enjoy the conversations. So I think we can start. Let me just start off by saying welcome. I know we let you down a little bit. We stopped doing the sessions for a while during January and February. Those were very hectic months. But Zim, we are back full time. We're committed. We've got a calendar of my different talks that will be launching soon. We're planning to record content that also go on YouTube. So even if you miss the content from now on, it's going to be fully recorded. So thank you guys for joining in, being part of the ride. As always, if you have my suggestions of different talks you wanna, different topics you wanna talk about, different things you wanna hear, people you'd like us to invite, please let us know. Today we have a very important speaker. I will try not to introduce Tendai too much. Tendai is a very critical topic you also talk to us on, right? It's why Zim developers are not making money. I think topic E, some will be offended by it, obviously, because obviously, but the idea behind this concept, I was discussing it earlier on with today. The idea behind this is saying that Zimbabwe has a lot of very good developers, right? We know the talent at Nile. We have some of the best developers. You will see that all over the world, right? You see what the talks we were doing last year, we had Zim developers at key companies like Apple, Microsoft, which means Zim developers are obviously very, very good. But for some reason, locally, there's something that's not connected. Something is missing the mark, right? Whether it's from the products like Trubuloja, Susu, or they're not making it into the hands of consumers, or in terms of the jobs that are being given to developers, they're not well paying, right? So today we've invited today to actually come and try and share with how can you actually establish yourself more as a developer to monetize the skills that you have. So I'm just gonna hand over to Tendai so that he can introduce himself and kick us off for the talk. Mr. Tendai, over to you. Okay. Tendai, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Mike, loud and clear. I could hear you, but I couldn't unmute myself. So thank you for that. And I'm trying to figure out where to start. But good evening, everyone. I think ever since I started attending these sessions, today is the day where I've seen the numbers just going up within the first 10 minutes, up to 39, 40, which I know happens, but it's probably because the topic is a little bit controversial, though not controversial, but I know that's what a lot of people are expecting. There's money involved, so it's very easy to get people together when there's money involved. So my name is Tendai. A lot of people don't know me because there is nothing much to know about me, but to some extent, I would say I'm more of a business person, and I always laugh and call myself an honorary developer. I know just enough about building stuff, not to be scammed and not to be confused when I'm working with developers. So much of the content that I'll share today are not stuff that I've researched. These are stuff that I've been through already. So I'm trying to I'll try to tap into my experience as much as possible. As someone who is more inclined towards business, and as someone who works with developers almost every single day. So it's just such an honor to be surrounded by such a talent. I'm sure all of us can admit that each person in this room to some extent are unique in their own way. The skills could be the same, but I'm sure if I'm having issues with a lot of bugs and I need someone, Anoma Gezesa, one of us in here can do it, maybe excluding me. So the topic we're looking into today is what I would call fundamentally important when it comes to what's currently happening within the Zim developer space at the moment. A lot of things that I would say are not things that most wouldn't consider so nice, but they are fakes and they're things that are important. And some of them might step on your ego. And to some extent, I would require that you bear with me because these are things that you need. Growth is not comfortable. So that's what's going to happen today. Where possible, we might use a chisel to try and remove, some of the things that are hindering growth, within the community, or things that might not be helping you to make money, and replace them with things that I feel are important and things that I feel can add value to you as an individual. So like what Mike said, my talk or my presentation will mostly center on the intersection between code and commerce, because I think that's where the money is. The code can be good, but if commerce doesn't get it, then no money is going to be invested into the project. And I think this is one of the things that developers, I'll try to say we as developers, because I'm an honorary developer myself with a PhD from UNISA. Don't ask me how I got it, but I have it. So that's what I will use today when I say we developers. So one big struggle that we all have as developers, which would be my starting point, or maybe before I go into that, this will be food for thought as we start the session for today. I don't know if anyone in this space has ever sold anything, and by anything, I mean anything, to anyone that they don't know, a stranger, whether you were selling your heart to someone, whether a lady or a gentleman, but if you have sold something, I'm sure we can all agree that sales is not an easy, subject to talk about. Selling something to someone is not easy because people are generally resistant when it comes to, chucking out money out of their pockets to invest in something that they might need, something that might benefit them. I'm sure most of us, when we spend money, we only spend money because we have no option. But if you are someone like me, at some point, if you are given money for transport to go to school, you can prefer to walk because you don't want to spend the money, although you know that you're supposed to use the money for transport. So the whole idea, what I'm trying to bring across is the fact that selling anything to people is not easy. So one biggest challenge that I've identified or that I've seen working with Zim developers, very talented people, people that can essentially build anything, but the question is, whatever we are building, is it something that we are building to satisfy our ego? So the big question that we'll try and look at first is, who are we building for? And this is a question that I want you to ask yourself. If you look into your portfolio, look at everything that you have built and ask yourself, who did I build this for? A lot of people might answer me and say, I built this because I wanted to show what I can do. And coming from corporate, one thing that most people don't get is that when I look at your portfolio, I'm not going to be impressed by just seeing how good you are when it comes to writing code if you haven't built something that has commercial value. When I'm looking at who to work with, I don't look at someone with a portfolio that has 15, 20 projects. And when I look at it, none of those projects would have been commercially consumed by people. And yet we are looking at building something that should benefit our clients or that should benefit the company's clients. So the biggest question you need to answer is that one: who did you build this for? Or who are you building this for? A lot of us, we just sit down, maybe it's some form of inspiration from some ideas we see, in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley, or from a colleague who is building something, and then we come up with amazing solutions, something that you look at and say, yeah, I did my best and I'm proud of it. But the question is, if you're building this to just, massage your ego, definitely no one is going to invest money into using it. So the biggest challenge we are facing, or something that we need to look into when we are building, is understanding the market that we're dealing with. Anyone who has looked at the statistics, or who has worked within the space for a long time, or who has built something that is commercially consumed, a B2C business would agree with me that the majority of Zimbabweans don't even live in the, in the cities. They live in the rural areas. So already you are building a product or a service that you want to be consumed by a market that is largely rural. And when you look at the population that lives in the urban areas, how many people have resources, or in terms of when you talk about data, have some change to spare to spend time whether browsing information or making use of whatever you'd have built. So a lot of people that just build from their own workstations at home, and in some way we expect that people will adopt it and they'll start paying for it. And where the catch is, and the reason why people continue building even though no one is paying for it, is because when you build, the 50 people or the 61 people in this room who adopt it and start using it, not because it's something valuable, but and we support each other. That's the best thing that we can do. But the moment you start introducing subscriptions, you start introducing some form of a revenue module around it, you start realizing that you don't have a product that people can use. So I'm not saying this to discredit the work that you have done, but I'm saying if our approach to building stuff comes from a customer perspective, comes from a human-centered design approach perspective, rather than us building things that are only going to be used by our peers or our fellow developers and not an actual market. So as we are talking, or as we are engaging right now, I just want you to quickly go through your portfolio, look at everything that's there, and ask yourself, would Unilever, although it's no longer in Zimbabwe, or Delta trust me to build something that their clients would use? I know, obviously, when we say Delta, maybe you'd say, what am I going to build that drunk people are going to use? But the question is, whatever you have, do you think someone will trust you to build a system that can be used, or whatever platform that can be used by their clients, just based on your portfolio? And like I always say, skill set is everywhere. A lot of people are talented these days with AI. Some are not talented, and they do try to make it look like they're talented. So skill alone is not what gets you the money. Building something the market is willing and ready to adopt is what gets you the money. A good example, when Zig was introduced, a lot of people were struggling with conversion until we had the Zig calculator. I think it was built by TechZim, and a lot of people were using it on a daily basis because none of us understood what Zig was, how the conversion worked. So they identified a problem and they built something that they didn't really monetize, but the market was ready to adopt it. So when we take an approach where we try to solve problems that people are willing to pay for, and like I always say, as a developer, sometimes you identify a real problem, but the question you need to answer is whether people are willing to pay for the problem that you have solved. Not all problems are worth solving. Some problems should just remain problems, because even if you solve them, people are just comfortable living with their own problems. So try to understand the pain point so that your code can address the customer's pain point, rather than just building for fun, or building to massage your ego, building to feel good, building because you have not shipped out anything in a month and you just want to post something on Twitter. And I mentioned Twitter specifically because on Twitter, there's a lot of manufactured progress that people don't see, but I won't get into that. So when you see things that people post, that people ship out, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing and you might think you're not doing anything. But when you look at whether they've made money out of what they've built, you'd realize, nothing has been made in terms of revenue. Not many people are using it outside their circle, except themselves and their friends. So I'm not saying this to attack you. I'm not saying this to discredit what you have built, but I'm saying this so that you understand why it is important for you to know your clientele, for you to know who you are building things for. And most of the time, the reason why American platforms thrive more than African platforms is because of that trust. They address a real problem. They take time studying the market before they work on the code. But with us Zim developers, we are very good, but I think we spend more time on the code than the time we spend with the people that we intend to give the product, the customers rather. So try and invest time in understanding the market or the people that you intend to serve when you write the code, rather than taking a different approach where you write a code and then expect people to just adopt it. And then secondly, I'm sure all of us in here can admit to this, but we barely see collaborations within Zim, Zim developers community. I'm saying they happen, that's why I used barely, but we barely see them because people have got I wouldn't call it a solopreneurship syndrome, because not everyone even wants to be an entrepreneur, but there's a bit of individualism within the work that we do that somehow hinders how far we can go. And when you look at this, a lot of people will say, no, why should I work with Mike or George? Because he's already doing something on his own. But no corporate will trust an individual. Corporates deal with corporates that are at their level. They want to work with someone who has systems. And systems doesn't mean skill set. It doesn't mean you can write the code and that's what qualifies you to get a gig. It simply means they have assurance that, as an example, if we give you 100K and you disappear, there's a way for us to be able to hold a system accountable for the money. They also want assurance that if they are, system, in terms of the actual tech system, their system downtimes, there is a team somewhere that will be able to help us. Because the biggest problem with us as developers, when we build something, when you write the code and you own the code, we all assume that you have the company in your pocket, and whenever you feel like you need some money for a six-pack for Zambezi, you play around with the system and then things just go westwards. So companies don't want to work with individuals for that reason, because when you work with an individual, if they've had a bad day, that could affect how they deal with you. But when you work with a corporate of some sort or an established system, that gives you assurance that if George or Tendai is not in a good mood, maybe Mike will be in a good mood and will be able to make a good business decision. So we need to try and start collaborating, build platforms together. I'm not really saying build businesses together, but I'm saying I can trust a platform that was built by 2 developers compared to one that was built by 1 individual. And like I always say, although people don't like it, you can try to be a same outman in Zim, but in Zimbabwe, you have a lot of problems that a lot of people in different markets will never experience in their lifetime. And these problems require that you leverage on the community that you have, which is the Zim developers community. Try and shift from the individual aspect and collaborate, because this is what corporate are looking for. And most of the time when I share this, people will say, he's probably sharing this because he spent some time researching. I've spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, but within the time that I've spent in corporate, I've learned a lot of things, around, commerce, especially the intersection between commerce and code. And during my time when I worked at Unilever, we used to outsource tech or IT consultants to some Indian consultants firms. And I always asked them, why can't we use local developers? And their answer was simple: you cannot trust Zimbabwean developers. I've asked the same question to a lot of people that use foreign HR softwares, and their answer has always been the same. One company actually told me they've tried to use a locally built software, but their biggest challenge was when there's an issue with the system, you can't get hold of anyone. The individual who built it might not be around because they attended the funeral. The individual that built the software might be drunk and not sober enough to be able to resolve the issue. So businesses end up losing money because they are dealing with someone who is not organized. And I'm not saying you're not organized, but I'm saying one way to be organized is to try and collaborate and work with other people within the community. So no man is an island, no developer is an island. You might be able to build something and ship it out, something that actually works, but that doesn't give enough trust for someone to give you resources to be able to build something that is commercially consumed. Because we want to be able to, get that assurance that if something goes wrong, we are not solely relying on you, but we are relying on a system and a team that will be able to address the problem. Another issue that we also need to look into within our community is the fact that we think we know it all, which is amazing. But one thing that you should understand is that it's not the code that gets you money, it's not the skill that gets you money, is the connections and the networks. And when I say connections, if you're in Zimbabwe, you know what that means. Decisions about how much money is invested in a particular project are not made by the IT department. That's if the organization is one. They are made by someone who has no clue about what a code is. They are made by someone who doesn't know not even one programming language. So what we need to start learning as developers is breaking down the code to an extent where your actual client can understand. I know we are used to getting gigs in a different manner than the one that I'm sharing. We are used to being approached to say, I want you to build this, which is okay. But if you are looking at building something for corporates, corporates will not approach you. Who are you to be approached by a corporate anyway? No matter how skilled you are, they've got a lot of options, a lot of consultancy firms to work with, and they won't go and headhunt you to build the software for them when they can go and work with a consulting firm that has a team and that gives them that assurance that they want. So we also need to start looking at our networks. We need to start looking at increasing our visibility rather in spaces where decisions about resource allocations are made. I'm not saying go and play golf when you don't enjoy playing golf, but Zim developers are barely seen in places where the actual deals are made. You see them at a place where they're buying barbecue, which is good. I'm not saying you shouldn't, we shouldn't, network as peers within the community, but also understand the money is not with the developers. The money is with someone else who doesn't have a clue what a programming language is. And these are the people that you can convince to say, I've got a project that I'm working on, and if you give me 5 minutes of your time, I think I'll be able to enlighten you, and you might be able to give me an opportunity to build this at a larger scale. So a lot of us, we feel that we are too good, and we shouldn't be found in these spaces because these are commerce people anyway. This is an accountant, it's a marketing person, but the decision about where the resources go are not made by IT people. IT people might confuse the accountant, but the accountant wants to know what value the system brings. So it all boils down to the commerce people who have no clue about what code is. And this also applies even to the market. You need to understand the people you are building for. Don't even know what back end is. They just want to know if it works, what problem does it solve, and what's in it for me. Everything that you pay for is because there is something that you perceive to, that you assume to be getting from it. In every deal that you have made, even the one that you think you won, the person that accepted that deal accepted it because they also thought they won. So you also need to understand that's how the market works. People don't buy things because they sympathize with you. They buy things because they feel like they are benefiting more than you are. So everything I buy, I don't buy it because it's expensive and I'm supporting you. I'm buying it because I think the value I'm getting is more than what I'm paying for. So in every deal, everyone leaves thinking that they have won. And this is what we also need to, to start investing in. And then my next point would be on personal branding. A lot of developers or us as developers, we focus so much on the technical stuff and we forget that the people that that use our products are not technical people. Some might be, but a lot of them are not technical people. The people that make decisions about where resources go are not technical people, and they can't understand anything about what you're doing. So I'm saying you need to start looking at building a personal brand as an individual, something that separates you from the code. I'm not going to invest in code because I know a lot of people can code. I'm going to invest in you as an individual. You have to be able to convince me that you have something more to offer outside code. Code is like a degree. Anyone can have a degree, but I need to know what else you have to offer. So we need to start investing in personal branding, start creating an opportunity for people to understand you as an individual. I know a lot of developers, a lot of us are not as social as commerce people or engineers to some extent, But you cannot make money if you don't like engaging with people, unfortunately, because the money is not with the bank, it's with the people. The bank owes the people money. They are keeping it for people, not really keeping it, but the money is with people. So we need to start investing in personal branding so that an ordinary person can connect to the work that we are doing. And then thirdly, we also need to start being more visible, in spaces where business is being discussed. I think I mentioned this point earlier, but I felt that I need to go back to that again. I've been to a lot of places where you think maybe you'll be able to meet one or two developers, but I don't know if you are shy. I don't know if it's the package that comes with being a developer. Maybe programming languages make people shy, but you can't make money if you are not in spaces where conversations about money are being made. So I personally believe the reason why a lot of us are not making money, and when you say they're not making money, the biggest question could be, okay, how do you know we are not making money? Did you investigate all of us? Did you do a research? I'm making enough money and I don't need to hear anything from you. But when we talk about money, I'm sure you know what we mean. If you're making a couple of dollars from Fiverr, from Upwork, that's not the money we are talking about. We are saying you could be making more, or you could be one of the few people making money off those platforms. But a lot of us are not harnessing the opportunities within our local market, not because they don't exist, but because we are waiting for the opportunities to look for us. One example I'll give you, about 4 years ago, I co-founded a startup with my roommate, and I'm sure you know where the story is going. It was because of the inspiration. We can't just be roommates and, not do something together. So we co-founded a startup called Bytecrafts. And luckily, because I've got a business background, we managed to secure our first contract with no portfolio and nothing as university students. So we were asked to build an ERP system for a company I won't disclose, and the outcome was beyond terrible. I got a proposal. I went with a proposal to the company, obviously, after being advised by the technical people that no, this can be done. I actually did this on my final year project, so let's get the gig and we'll be able to deliver. It took us months before we could deliver just a working prototype, because these were people that were in their final year. I was also in my final year, so we messed up a lot of relationships simply because we focused on what we stood to get instead of what we had to offer or how much we had to invest in ourselves before we could go out there. So one key takeaway I got from this is the fact that in as much as we were not there in terms of the skill set and everything, we also didn't know how to manage relationships, which is typical of most developers. A lot of you don't know how to nurture relationships. You have a very good relationship with the computer and your workstation that is intact, and you guys are in a long-term commitment. But when it comes to business, most of you don't know how to handle clients. You think everything revolves around the code and no one should tell you what to do. And you forget, just like as they say, the customer is always the king. The person you are building the platform for is the king. Sometimes when I interact with the work that we do online, I love when people are being a little bit defensive when they get feedback, but you cannot grow if you're not willing to take feedback from other people, because the market is the one, that prevails when it comes to the outcome of whatever you are building. So we need to start learning to nurture relationships. I can't change you, and I'm not saying learn to nurture relationships, but that's where collaboration comes in. You might be good at writing code, but it's not the code that gets you the money. And the conversion from the code to the cash is where most people start dragging. And if you are to be honest, and if I'm lying that we are not making money, the majority of us, I'm happy. I know there's some that are making money, but I know the majority. If you had to say, no, let's give everyone the chance to share their screen, let's see what we have in our eco cache, then you see why this is relevant. Because we are not making as much as we should. We are making just enough to be able to stay on our feet. So I'm saying there are a lot of opportunities out there, but you need to invest a lot of time in understanding your market. A good example is, I conclude just to make you aware, I didn't want to touch on the global perspectives. I wanted us to look at what's within our reach and not, it's good to think global, but there are a lot of opportunities we're not exploiting locally. So last year we were doing a lot of rural digitalization project with some of the developers in this space. So it's something they're familiar with. And we essentially, I now know these words because I work with these people. So if I say it wrongly, which I won't anyway, it's because it's not my area. But we're setting up local networks, mesh networks, if you would call them, in the rural areas. And this was after the realization that a lot of people in the rural areas actually don't even have access to the internet. So if you want to be able to reach out to these people, you need to find a way to make internet very affordable. So a lot of us would say, I build amazing apps. I'm a very good web developer. But there was a lot of money which was there. I think to those that are in this room, maybe just a few, one or two, that know how much revenue we made last year, which I won't disclose because it would seem like I'm trying to do something. It was an opportunity that was untapped, but we were willing to explore it. We just didn't sit and say we're going to build and wait for someone to come and say, I'm ready to buy what you have built. We'll go out there and proffer solutions. So many people don't know what they even need. They don't know what exists out there. This whole AI stuff, it's just around, among us as developers. But the people that should benefit or that should pay to use the services that you are building on whether on OpenAI, APIs, DeepSeek, whichever you choose, don't even know there is something called AI that's as powerful as we all claim. So we need to start investing time in educating our market, and we don't educate after we have built. We try and make them see the problem. You cannot sell a solution to me if I haven't acknowledged that I've got a problem that needs to be solved. So make me appreciate and understand that there's a problem so that when you bring a solution, I don't have to ask what problem you're solving. I should be asking, how much am I going to pay to be able to exploit or explore your solution? So I think a lot of us within this space have the capacity to make a lot of money, but we are restricting ourselves to code, and we think it's the skill set that gets us money. But maybe as an example, if you just look at all the people within this room, the majority of them are as good as you are. They might not be, let's just say subjectively, and they're as good as you are. So there's nothing that distinguishes you from the rest of the 60-something people, 80-something people rather in this space. So you need to find a way to distinguish yourself out of the rest. And one of the ways to do that is the personal branding I mentioned, and it's also to ensure that you build something that people actually consume. Let's stop building to massage our egos. Let's stop building because you have learned that there's something called vibe coding. You have learned that there is something called, I don't know, whatever is happening within this space, and you just decided to build. It's also good to build for fun, to just build and see if you are now good at exploiting certain tools, but it's very important for you to build something from a market perspective. Build something that solves an actual problem, a solution that people can actually use, because this is exactly where the money comes from. It's not because companies don't want to work with you or any NGOs don't want to work with you. They simply haven't interacted with anything that you have built, because everything you build is used by your friends and your family and no one else. So we can't trust you with something that the whole country will use. I've seen a lot of people say government websites are terrible. They can't trust you to build the website, just a website. I know this is subjective, but have you built anything that can be used by people in your church? Let's not look at the whole country. So how can I trust you on the basis, that you have built something that's on your portfolio when you have not built something that people are actually using and can testify to say we have not had problems? It's perfect. So try and work on that, because in as much as your portfolio is important, it's not as important as you think. And I can't even, sometimes someone can, which has happened before, George can use Mike's portfolio. That has happened before, although you think, no, how it happened. So it can't really speak for you unless there's something out there that people are using at a commercial scale that you have built, because this is exactly where we are starting. So as I conclude, ask yourself that question every time as you're writing the code. Who am I writing this code for? If it's for yourself, just know it's for yourself and no one is going to use it and be happy with it. I'm just doing this for me because I want to feel good. So that's what's very important. I won't go on and on. I've got a lot of things to say, and we have limited time as well. But I think what I've said is what's important, and one of the reasons why I believe most of us are not making money. Attend the tech events, but also try to be in industry events, business meetups, where decisions about expenditure are being made. So this is what I believe is very important at the moment, and I'm going to leave it here because if I start getting to where I wanted to go, it might not end well. Thank you for listening, and I'm hoping I'll be able to answer a lot of the questions and say the things I couldn't say that I wanted to say. But like what have you always, I borrowed this statement, say, besides you, your peers, your friends, and your family, who else is using the platform you have built? And if there is no one outside the people I've mentioned, then you build this for yourself. These people are just using it. I'm sure you have had a situation, maybe if you grew up in our era, if you are not that old or that young, where Mike will produce a song, deep down I know, yeah, hapana need a song up, but ndongotenga disc mic and I take it to my colleagues and give them, I am first one, we song in first one, but deep down we know this is not something worth listening to. Mike is just forcing us to listen to that song, but hapana. That's what we're all doing with platforms. So try and build something that's commercially consumed, because you learn more when the users are 100 and not 10, and real users, not tech people that will understand you when the website is inaccessible or when the application is inaccessible. George or Mike will understand because they are technical people, but Tendai won't because I'm an actual user. So try and build something that actual users can use. So don't do it alone. Just as a summarize, know your market, check your ego. Every time you sit on your desktop and ask yourself, am I building this for myself or for a particular market? And try to build a brand. And the brand shouldn't be around your code, it should be around you as an individual. And show up in places that are not just tech related, places where business decisions are made, because this is where the money is. And if I offended you about not making money, I'm sorry, but you need to make money anyway. You need money. Money is good. Over to you, George and Mike. And I hope I didn't offend anyone. If I did, uh, I will do it again.
Sorry, there's just a friend of mine who's asking for your address. I don't think. Do you mind sharing it?
The beauty with me, Mike knows me. I barely stay at one place. I arrived in UK today. I can give them the UK address, but tomorrow I will be in another part of Europe. So the person just needs my live location, and I can happily share because I need more hands.
You know too many ways in Kuma.
No, I'm from Manicaland, manje saka ndakatobikwa kudhara.
Guys, but thanks so much, Tendai, man. That was really an insightful talk, man. Quite short, brief, but straight to the point. And yeah, I mean, it did touch a lot of nerves, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people really did grab my lessons from this. And yeah, just now we're just gonna open up to the Q&A session. And yeah, so guys, with how we're gonna do with the Q&A session is do write your questions down, right? In case someone is talking right now, then do write your question down, and then you can also raise your hand. But I would recommend that you do write your questions down. Me and Mike will compile them and also share them with Tendai on the side, so that at least he knows that after this question, he's jumping to this question. And we can also avoid people talking, repetitive items. So yeah, and if you do raise your hand and you're given a chance to talk, please let's try to keep it short. No, it's not really a discussion. We do have Tendai on the panel, so he's here to answer questions and just assist us. So yeah, you shoot your question, and then we'll give him a chance to respond. So yeah, that's good. So let me see. There was someone who had raised their hand. I'm not sure if they're still here. Um, Yeah, so I'm gonna pick Ronald. You can go ahead.
Thanks, Tendai, for that presentation. I just wanted to also emphasize the need for, um, so there's actually a big gap as well between your developers and the customer. I interface with a lot of people who are saying, I need a solution, I need a solution. And as much as there's so many people who are doing stuff, there is still that big gap. So there's something that we need to do to close that gap as well. And I think it's also important for developers to offer free solutions as well. Like I'll give you an example, Zoho CRM, in as much as they make so much money from their paid solutions, they also have that free one for everyone. And it's not even a trial, it's always there. So you also have to do that. Then we as Zimbabweans, we also need to learn how to pitch ourselves, right? Which also means we need to build our solutions for scale, right? I have got people from 54 Collective, and I'm forgetting another organization, but these are like Dragon's Den kind of setups. And they're saying we don't see Zimbabweans coming to look for funding, right, for their solutions. Every other country is coming, the Nigerians, the Kenyans, they're coming for money and we're giving them. But one of the Zimbabwean board members, they're saying there are no Zimbabweans coming. So we also need, as developers, we need to learn the art of also learning how to pitch, learning how to talk, learning to have interpersonal skills. Now, I know it was a cool thing to be a shy or a nerd, but it doesn't pay your bills at the end of the day. So in as much as you want to do that, it's important to also learn to communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just add something to what you mentioned. And I've heard a lot of people say I'm generally a shy person, but that's not an excuse. If you are that shy, then that's where the collaboration comes in, because no one who understands, the fact that you are shy is not a valid excuse to be shy, because people won't know that you exist if you don't put yourself out there. And like you mentioned, there is a lot of money. The reason why some of us are everywhere and across the continent and we are not developers is because there's money. You just don't show up and claim the money, but the money is there. And the whole fact that Zim is on sanctions and you can't get access to resources, it does happen. But if you have something and if you are showing up, definitely there's money out there. I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter, although he's not really, I wouldn't call him a developer, but Need Energy got some resources, must be 1.1 million, and they are still a Zim startup. So that should set a standard on what we can possibly do as developers. And if you are that shy, that's justifiable, but then work with others. A lot of people that I work with don't even want to be in front of a panel, but some of us do the work they need to do. I'm not saying look for me or look for a comments person. Look for a valuable team member. It could be another developer or someone else, but you two are better than one in any situation.
Nice. Sorry, Ronald, can you please also like text the name of the organization you mentioned, the one that you said Zimbabweans are not reaching out to, that others can actually check it out to in the comments there. All right, and I think it's Tendai. Yeah, Tendai also had a hand raised. You can go on.
Oh, yeah, everyone, and thank you, Tendai, for the nice for the fantastic talk that you had with us. Yeah, I'm actually part of a group who is highly into looking those stuff that it's do on why we are not making money. So I think the main thing is as developers, we would love to work with ourselves and solo, like Dongo Shandateka, and we don't legalize ourselves in terms of registering a company, getting proper papers, and also the issue of licensing itself. And also it's actually about also our government whereby they don't give us the platform as developers to actually express what we have. I can give you a good example whereby most of fintech services are only limited to banks, and us as solo developers, we don't have access to those because we can't afford the licenses. So in that area, it's only limited to banks. So which is kind of that gives us limit. And the third thing is that is to do with our audience or with our customers who would adopt our solution, whereby data is very, very expensive because of how data is treated in Zimbabwe. I feel like data has to be treated as a utility rather than a service to most of those telecommunication companies, whereby the developers would pay for our clients to access our sites, more zero rated sites, so that you can give a huge audience to people who develop solutions to create a lot of solutions that we have adoption to by many of people. So I think that's the contribution I'd love to make.
Yeah, I'll probably be popping in here and there, but thank you for that contribution. So, like I mentioned earlier on as well, what we were doing, because we realized there are certain problems that we can never solve and that are not likely going to be solved in the next 50 years, and that's possible. And one of it is that cost of data. That's why we started adopting, the approach where we were setting up local networks, and although that comes with its own risk, where one Starlink is being used by 5-6 different words, because people being people, sometimes they download things they shouldn't download. And yeah, I've said what I'm supposed to say, but we also tried to create to solve a problem and create an opportunity in the process, because this is exactly what most people with money would be looking to invest into. Because they'll tell you, yeah, I know the problem is there, but that's not the problem I'm trying to solve. I'm not trying to give people free internet. I'm trying to make sure there is a particular platform or network, whichever name you decide to call it, where people can converge and discuss issues that are happening within their wards. So we had to solve a problem and create an opportunity for someone to invest resources. So we solved a problem and created another one that we then solved again. So that's one thing that we should also do. And I think, like what you mentioned about the government and stakeholders not seeing us, there's a bit of an unbalanced relationship. There are people with money and people with skills and ideas. And unfortunately, those with money think they have it and they don't care about anyone. That's why sometimes it's very difficult for you to just be admitted into one office, even if you have a problem, a solution rather, that you want to provide free of charge. They won't listen to you because money is what gives you a voice. Unfortunately, we might not admit it, but without money, yeah, even if you scream to other people, it's a whisper. That's why we're trying to figure out how best we can somehow establish ourselves so that we can have a voice to some extent, because those with money, things zvakadzidzwa vane mari vakavhara magedhi vakaisa chain. So you need that the money at first to be able to get a chain, so to break 1 or 2 chains and gain access.
Also, if you can just come in there today, particularly on the issue of zero rating, right? I think in as much as we would like that to happen, I think we need to realize, guys, internet does not care about some of these things. Same thing with Net One. But more importantly, I think if we look at the consumers, guys, I think let's just look at the user base here, TikTok, for example, right? Gen Z will always have data for TikTok, right? I've seen like no matter what happens, like the younger generation will have data for TikTok, will have data for Instagram, and guys, people are not using the apps because of other data. I think it speaks to the value because if your app is very, very valuable, right? Mono say with the let me buy 80 cents data bundle Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a comment as mic is dragging. Okay. Munu say let me buy 30 cents data bundle and 1 hour. So I can use this service because it's valuable, because I want to value. So in as much as we say what you know, it would be nice if people zero rated us or whatnot, right? I think we need to speak more to, is value attributable enough to convince him to actually buy data, right? Then obviously not all apps will see that, right? So you also need to see, okay, maybe one, I'm not visiting my website, right? How do I get people to visit to use my service without visiting my website because I'm not data, right? There are things like chatbots, right? Put your chatbot on WhatsApp. Because maybe I need, depending on your target market, right? Would it B2B or B2C? Maybe the person has enough data to go on WhatsApp because people love my WhatsApp bundles, right? But maybe I not data bundle. So if you can do a WhatsApp chatbot that can use this, right? If you can't do WhatsApp chatbots, depending on user market again, right? You can always do my SMS and deliver your service via that. So you always need to be creative around what medium you're using to deliver your service. But all I would say is if your service is B2B, or no one data, right? There are a lot of people who go to work for but some problem because Baseroshi is Magenzi, is internet. So target those people, right? So look at your user base critically and see whether user base always has data for this. If they always have data for WhatsApp, target them on WhatsApp. Also, make sure you're providing enough value for the user worker to be on your site.
Yeah, but Mike, you know, like with one thing I've realized with my items, my zero rating and stuff. If you do present your case with a good cause, they do actually offer you for your organization, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you, Georgia. Just to mention, although I'm kind of like getting into some details, when we were setting up local networks, we had issues with portals to some extent. And if you approach them nicely and they understand what you're looking at and what you intend to do, they're always happy to find a solution to your problem. So they ended up suggesting that they've got a community ISP that they give people that are trying to experiment at community level, as long as whatever you are doing does not interfere with some aviation stuff. So although at first they were not really interested, but they ended up bringing a solution to our own problem, although they are not really the nicest people to deal with. But if you've got something of value to offer, regulators and some private sector partners or stakeholders are happy to work with you. They could take it as CSR, or they'll try and create a package that fits your budget or your consumer's budget.
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Okay.
May I add something as well?
Yeah, I was about to call your name. Go on, bro. And then you can ask the
Okay.
question.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tendai, for the beautiful presentation. I'd say a lot of us got to like learn a lot and also got more sort of like cemented, more of this knowledge to be like cemented. All right. I think what I would like to comment on is on collaboration and this whole solopreneurship kind of thing that we like as developers. Yeah, a lot of us like that. I think we do like the story of Rex to riches as a one-man founder, that kind of a thing. But most of the times we don't exactly understand how business works. And then the other thing that I would like to comment on is to say, okay, I think also as developers, we should stay away from what I would call tepid ideas. Tepid ideas are consumer ideas which are, well, basically they're facing the consumer. When you look at Zimbabwe, right, most consumers don't exactly have money to be spending on an app or on a website or subscription models like that. Some things like that. Those things don't work in Zimbabwe. You look at something like Spotify. How many people do you know that actually have a Spotify subscription? Right, not so many. And when you look at someone mentioned people paying for InDrive. InDrive works, sure, but how much do they exactly make from like the Zimbabwean market, right? And also we have to understand that Intrav is not exactly a local company, right? So there's a lot that is already subsidized for it. There's a lot that is going well for it. And when you look at something like Dialect Delivery, it's already a part of Simbisa brands, right? So they are able to offset any losses. So if you were to come in as a developer and you're making a consumer-facing application, right, chances of you succeeding, they're extremely low because already there's already like a good suite of very good products that solve most of our problems, right? I would advise that as developers we focus more on B2B solutions, but the only way, or rather the best way that you could build a B2B solution is if you've actually worked in that particular industry. The best person that can build a banking application is someone that has worked in a bank and understands the processes that are in a bank, right? Same goes for insurance or whatever industry. So if there is a way, if you find an industry that you're particularly interested in and you feel like you could disrupt it, the best way that you could go about it is find your way into that particular industry. Learn the ropes of that particular industry and then go on and build solution for that particular industry. If you're doing it just from your workstation, having never been in it, I think it's an non-starter. So yeah, that's my contribution.
Nice, bro. Thank you so much for that. Tendai, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to emphasize on what he said, that it's the era of amazing ideas is over. You don't get recognized because you've got an amazing idea. You are very good at what you do. That era is over. I think there's a video that I was circulating online. I can't remember who it is. But one statement I picked from it, I think the speaker was saying success in this generation is not earned, it is given. Someone has to open the door for you to be able to access a particular industry. So if you think you are so good, it happens, but the chances of that happening is close to zero. People need to have assurance that you know what you are doing, and that assurance, like I always say, these days trust can be hotspotted. If you don't know someone, and I know the person, if I hotspot my trust, you'll be able to gain access to that particular person. So you won't be able to build something amazing, just get attention from your workstation, wake up with 100 million. That's all what all of us envision. But when you understand that the people that make decisions are people that have no clue about tech, go and look at the top companies or the biggest companies in Zimbabwe right now and look at their executives. They are not young people. So that's a barrier already, and you need to be able to break that barrier. Code won't break it for you. The skill set won't break it for you, but people will break it for you. And those are the people that you're avoiding because they don't write code. They are business people. So try and invest in the connections, like what I think Andy said. Try and invest in the networks, because you need someone to let you in. Even if you spend the whole day knocking, no one cares. Your ideas are amazing, but we don't deal with amazing ideas anymore. We deal with people that we know, because that's where the trust comes from.
Nice. There was also just give me a minute. Let me check the name. Yeah, Tapua. Yeah, that's Tapua. Tapua, you had your hand up for some time, man. Sorry. You can go ahead and contribute.
All right, how's it, everyone? No, thanks for it's a very brilliant platform. So I just need to make some comments around. I see everyone is talking about ideas and developing systems, but also with my experience as well. One thing that I've noticed, I don't know if it's already there in Zim, but I think developers need to start looking at value addition to existing platforms. Like, you just have to look at the gaps, within the workflows, and how best can you improve, those gaps. And also, I think there's a lot of accounting systems. There are a lot of communication tools. There are a lot of banking tools like EcoCash. But now I think we need to start looking at value addition. How do we, even small extensions, plugins, whatever the case might be. You know, it might be for WordPress, WooCommerce, it might be for Shopify. You know, integrating between PayNow and what are the payment gateways that are there. So yeah, those are the things that we need to start looking at, you know, and yeah, there are a lot of opportunities there. And hence, I'm based in South Africa, and like, believe me, people are making money with simple things, you know, like within an existing ERP, you might get a contract just to develop an extension that aggregates data, you know, and do a simple dashboard report, you know. So yeah, that's my comment contribution.
So I was muted. Nice. Thanks so much, bro, for contributing that. Can I join? Add something on?
No, I think you pretty much brought out a very important point that I actually had not mentioned, because I think I'm sure you know how it is with change. It's very easy for me to, you know, get something that can quickly integrate into my already existing lifestyle than adopting something that requires me to completely change my lifestyle. That's why a lot of us, if I'm, you know, out of context anyway, if we try to change our diet, it can be difficult. Go to the gym, it's difficult because it's not part of who you are. So I think consumers easily adopt, even companies easily adopt things that can fit within their already existing systems, because they also want the system to do better. So I think he brought out a very important point, and that's one thing that people need to consider. Look for problems within their existing systems and softwares, and try and solve those problems, because every system or every software has a weakness, and we can exploit that weakness and provide a solution to it. It might not be something that quickly or that, you know, completely eliminates the weaknesses, but you can cushion them against or towards rather the consequences of the weaknesses. Could be a data breach that they were yet to experience. If you find a solution to it, then you are in business.
Nice. All right. Next up, guys. Remember, we planning on finishing this around 9:30. So let's try to keep our suggestions, you know, quite short, and questions short, so that everyone can also, you know, answer and ask questions. All right. Mr. Brian, you rained up, followed by Mr. Nyasha. Yeah. So Brian,
Yeah.
you can go.
Okay. Guys, this is wonderful. It excites me. My name is Brian Onaichitio. I'm here out in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'll just be quick and be basics. Guys, off the bat, it's okay to always talk about money and what not. But let me tell you something that I've discovered. The money in our industry follows problem solutions, and nowadays only solutions that are reoccurring payments, reoccurring services. So the problems we're having in Zim, we have to accept that developers can't make money in Zimbabwe. I'm not saying there's something wrong with money, but we need to start. When you go in other platforms, they're always only talking about how what problem they solve. They rarely even discuss money. For example, I was in Tel Aviv 2 months ago, Israel. Web security and all of that, and they were just discussing new ideas. Not a single time did they discuss money. I'm not saying we shouldn't. We come from a struggling continent. It's fine. In Zimbabwe, if we accept that we can't make money in Zim, we now have to say, what's the solution? The solution is outside contracts. Guys, I've traveled and I've seen Zimbabwean developers are so bright. We are literally the best on that continent, and around the globe, top 5. Easy. Because we've had to learn the craft by figuring out and jumping over larger hurdles than everybody else. So that being said, there's a webinar that's going on the 21st. When I leave this meeting, I'll leave my contact. I would like to invite everybody that's in here. What that webinar is going to do, it's going to educate most of us in here, or most of us who are back home, on how to get US-based work. They'll also show you how to get a US-based virtual address or a local virtual business address if you want. It's a whole new thing. And another thing that's happening, Fiverr, Freelancer, Upwork, all those platforms that used to say US only contracts, there's a loophole now. If a company here is an agency on Upwork and they hire someone outside the country, that person can bid for you for contracts marked US only. And it's a small little loophole that that company, Green Bison Digital, is utilizing. They are also looking for local partnerships on the continent to start spreading their automation tools. They have all these things that they want to start putting on the continent. They're slashing off prices. You can initiate webhook, API, those tools, and so forth and so on. But in closing, right now, let's accept developers are going to struggle in Zim. So the idea is to look outside, and there are methods. There's also a method I used to use on going on Craigslist, and just on the computer gig part, spend 2 hours emailing people on there. They usually have tasks on there. So that's all I have to say, gentlemen. If you could contact me, and then I could share the link with everybody and just attend that webinar on the 21st of this month, I'm pretty sure it'll be a good solution. It's free for anybody who wants to attend. Thank you, gentlemen.
Awesome, Mr. Brian. That's thank you so much for that opportunity, bro. So you can contact Mike or reach out to me, and then we can share your credentials or the details with the community, just to get more details from you on what's happening, and maybe just some valuable links that we can also share with the other with the community. So yeah, please reach out to Mike. Mike, you can share your email in the chat there.
Mike,
And
yeah, can you share your contacts, please, in the chat, and I'll grab them. Both you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys, and good luck in everything.
Okay, thank you so much, man. Tendai, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm following, and it's amazing when people start sharing. That's the beauty of the community. I'm still there. I'm following.
Exactly. That's how a community grows, with everyone just contributing as much as they can,
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Next up we have Nyasha. You can go on and ask your question.
Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you for this opportunity. How is everyone doing? I'm Yasha. I just started off last year as a web developer. I'm now a full stack developer. So I just wanted to ask, how do I know that I'm now ready to find even clients and start solving problems? I'm actually a college student right now, and I also want to know about external markets in access those external markets in USA and all that kind of stuff. How do I get to that? And also, how do I navigate the AI stuff and start using top technologies from where I am right now? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want that answered in a technical way or business side of thing, because your question is kind of mixed 50-50 there. But I can try, and I'll give it to Tendai to answer it. But from my side, I would suggest that just start solving real world problems, practice your skills. If you do want to leverage AI, just look at real world problems that we have and see how best AI can solve them. For example, maybe you might look at education wise, with the issue of students, we have students who are not able to pay for my school fees and stuff like that. Maybe you can try building something that can teach them whilst they're home using AI. But you just have to really leverage the tools that you have at end to solve the problems that you see in your communities or in society that you live in. That's how you can actually, also grow as a developer, just by doing things that help you, like with the things that you see around you. Yeah. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Tendai, I don't know if you have anything to add on the business side, just to help him also, like, yeah.
I think it was more of like a technical question, George, but I think everything you have said is spot on. Because you can never, I think his question was, how do I know? You can never fully, like, it's not a feeling. You don't feel that you're now there. Because at some point, I'm sure there are bugs that will make you call Mike, George, I think Zambezi can't solve it. So you just have to keep investing in yourself. And if you're a college student, just that appreciation and understanding that your degree won't do much, especially in this space. I know it because I spend time with a lot of developers, so you probably need to start looking at some courses, things like that, and get certified for certain courses, because the degree will give you the foundation, or whatever you're doing can give you the foundation, but you also need to start looking at other options to add value to what you already have, because by the time you graduate, it's probably 30 or 40, if not 100 of you, all with the same foundational, the foundation that you have. So try to find ways to make yourself stand out where possible, work under someone that can give you some menial tasks to do. Could be data entry or something basic, but that's how you learn when you work on real projects, because no amount of content, you can read that will just make you that good. You need to be able to do the actual stuff.
Yeah. All right. Next, I'll give it to we have a lady actually. I don't know if I'm saying your name correct, but is it Phyllis?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Tendai, for the wonderful presentation. I just wanted to assist with the person who asked about how do they pivot into AI. So any proper AI-based application is data-driven. So your starting point has to be understanding data and how do you transform it to be usable with your model. So the very first thing which you possibly can start looking into, of course, you'd have understood your databases, how you store your data, where do you store it, and also something which is very important right now, especially those wanting to develop their own personal applications, is understanding this whole Data Privacy Act in Zim. So if you're going to be creating something which involves personally identifiable information, those are some of the things which you also have to understand. And they just don't come from you having your own technical skills. There are things like data masking, which you have to understand now in this age of AI. What do you expose? What do you encrypt? Things like that. So that brings me to my point, which I wanted to put in as more of in addition to what Tendai was explaining. We need to shift from the mindset that we all have to develop an application. Sometimes what you need is to upskill, understand where the world is going. If you look at the current trends, Zimbabwe is actually in the process of adopting things like cloud computing. Look into pivoting those coding skills of yours into something like DevOps, automation. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur and building your own thing, but possibly find ways to plug yourself into big corporates which are already leveraging the modern technology, because it's not easily accessible to be paid by you as an individual. It requires some form of upfront investment. So there are so many ways of making money currently. One thing which you can look up is cloud computing. And while we are there, I'll just drop a link to our website. We are going to be offering training for cloud computing. So those who would be interested in learning specifically Amazon Web Services, reach out. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think Mike, you can also connect with Mike too, and also share the resources, and then yeah, we can just engage from there, and also help out the community sharing the notes. But otherwise, thank you so much for pulling through to share the resources and your contribution. Right. Okay. Right, guys. As we wrap up, I think we're just gonna take a few of these questions. Then I'll hand it over to Mike. So we have Sense45. Yeah, my username. Sense45 can go on and contribute. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I sorry for the name, but yeah, you can just call me Sense. I have a weird or hard to pronounce name, so yeah, that's why. But yeah, for me, I just wanted to sort of like add on what Tendai had said, just to say that I think as developers, we need to remain humble. We can learn a lot from business people. And as we build, we need to try and I think collaborate more with business people, because there's a lot of things that we don't know. There's a lot of things that we need to learn. I think I've built something where I was very arrogant. I thought my opinion mattered, but then ended up having a product that was useless. As painful as that was, but it was a learning curve. So I would say that's very important for us to remain very humble and also learn from those people. Then the other point that I would also want to add is that when we building the products, whatever solutions that we add, there's a product that we're building. I'm not going to share because this is not advertisement, but probably the approach that would be best, I think, for us, what Tapio I think said, is sort of like a headless approach, where our whatever solutions that we build, they're extensible. Someone can easily plug and replace whatever sort of like the core logic of your system is. So by that, obviously, just to simplify, I mean, someone can be able to, for instance, use WooCommerce or use WhatsApp on your platform without you being opinionated in what they need to use. Then the other thing probably will be an offline first approach, because some of these things, a lot of these things, they don't need end users to be online, especially if we're saying we have a problem. We shouldn't be focusing more on the problem, which is the data. Let's say, for instance, an expense tracker, just for an example. You can always do that, everything offline, and sync whenever the user is able to be online. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, I'll say that's all from my end. I want to talk to Michelle.
Awesome, bro. Thanks so much for the contribution. And yeah, I think we have the last question from Jonathan. If you guys do have follow-up questions, I'll give Tendai the opportunity to actually put up his tags, like for Twitter, emails, or anything where you guys can reach out to him. So Tendai, you can also like put it in the comments so that people can also reach out channels that you are available. But yeah, Tendai, you can go ahead and ask your question. What did Tendai? Yeah.
Hi guys. This is Tendai. I just thought to just contribute. So I had a few contributions around banks, people trying to penetrate large corporates. So I work for a bank in Zim, and the bank also has a technology company. So right now I'm actually in Tanzania. We're working on a project through the technology subsidiary of the bank in Zim. And I wanted to highlight that I think the key thing as well is for developers to sort of formalize, because some of these external opportunities are based on credibility. There are some things that these foreign companies would require, like bank guarantees. So if you're not formalized and your bank cannot support you with a bank guarantee for you to get a contract outside Zim, it could be a huge challenge for you to get those opportunities. Secondly, regarding working with banks in Zim, I think in terms of the fintech space, there's need for a lot of education and cooperation between the industry, which is the financial services, and the developers, because we see that from the bank side, what we see is that there are a lot of developers who come and pitch their ideas, but with very little understanding of how the financial system works, right? So there are a lot of regulations, there are a lot of standards involved in banking. So the idea might be good, but in terms of meeting the criteria around regulation and compliance, that's where most of the challenges are. So I think maybe as a working group, there might be the need for that education, so that at least when startups come to banks with ideas, they know exactly what needs to happen. Most of the time, it's the bank would like the idea, but then the bank would then realize that they would have to carry most of the weight in implementing the idea, because there's really true understanding on how the financial system works. And obviously, banks are risk averse, so most of the ideas will then be turned down. I'll share my email address. Incidentally, we're also looking for freelancers to work with at this technology subsidiary for the bank I work for. So I'll just share my email address, and if the guys want to work with us for various projects, we are open to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tendai. I know you did mention the bank, but I have a good idea of what bank that is, and I just need to say that the bank, and specifically the subsidiary, is doing a lot of great work. I've been just monitoring you guys' progress for a while. So I'll definitely advise, if there's anyone who wants to apply as a freelancer, it's a very good opportunity. So I think we're now just wrapping up. Thank you so much, guys, for your contributions. We've had, I think, for our first session back, the engagement was incredible. The turn-up was incredible. The insights were truly amazing. I don't know from Tendai if you have any closing remarks.
So I wouldn't call it a closing remark, but I feel that I probably overemphasized on building, and probably ended up making everyone feel like they need to build a business. So I thought maybe the closing remarks would be a disclaimer that not everyone has to be an entrepreneur or to run an enterprise, but the information that we were sharing, or the contributions that everyone was giving, was to enlighten you so that you understand what the world has to offer. But a lot of people in these platforms that are running any form of enterprises will tell you, if there was an option to not run a business, everyone would take that, because it is very stressful. So don't feel inspired to start something of your own with another person you met in the space, because that's not a guarantee that it's going to work. And if I have offended you, I'm sorry, but you need the money. So let's work so that we can get the money. And also, Mike, one thing I didn't ask, which you're well aware of, I'm not a developer myself, but sometimes we do come across opportunities that might require other developers that are not Mike. I'm tired of working with Mike, and not George, but Mike. So I'll be happy to join a community where I can objectively comment on solutions. If someone wants to hear what I think about what they are doing, I don't care about people's feelings. So I will tell you to stop coding if you have to, because you are doing nothing, and I'll give you reasons why. So I'm just saying I'm happy to engage, whether on Twitter or on another platform, but not emails, before we start receiving CVs. We don't have jobs, but thank you so much for being this engaging and for attending. I won't continue speaking, Mike. I know it's 8:30 already. Over to you.
All right. So thanks so much today. I think everyone will agree that the talk had a lot of insights. A lot of the times, some developers, we talk among ourselves, we think that at the end of the day, texted language is what will bring you money. I think it's always nice to get perspective of someone from the outside who's like, okay, I know what's going on in the developer space, but here's one or two things you're probably missing. So thank you so much for taking the time. People in this call might not know, but you were traveling, you got off a flight. Last month saying you didn't even have time to rest. You were preparing for this talk and you're with us. So from the bottom of my heart, we as the developer community, we really, really appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time. Then for everyone else, guys, this is our first session in a while. So thanks for showing up. We promise to try and be more consistent. We're going to be having a lot more sessions every 2 weeks. We're going to be having sessions. We'll try and record every session that we do so that it's available for you. So that even if you miss the session because of other commitments, you can always come and watch that session. So we have another session coming up, particularly on freelancing. So next 2 weeks, just look out on my Twitter for the details around that and on different groups and social media channels that we'll be sharing on. To everyone that joined in, I'll share a recap with the contacts for all the opportunities that we discussed here. There were a lot of big points, a lot of different opportunities shared. So just look out for those. I'll be sharing those as well. But for today, thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you after 2 weeks for our next meetup. Thank you, guys. As we end, just feel free to unmute your mic and say hi and bye to everyone so that we end the session in honor of the box.
Hello and bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. Thank you so much.
you. Bye.